job is to the interest of the county.
I agree completely.
And
with
Doug, I'm sure would agree.
I agree
As
with
an
that.
attorney, I serve the county of Montgomery. And I'm appointed by the county executive, subject to the confirmation of this legislature. I gotta come talk to this board and talk to you.
that. Why can't they serve coterminous with the chief executive?
Because there's scenarios where, so you do serve, and that's why we want to make it clear that the county attorney does serve the county, and therefore
Both bodies.
they should
I agree.
be fall back on their ethical duty as an attorney. This is my client.
I agree.
But there are scenarios where, and we've seen these lawsuits pop up on counties that haven't made this clarification, in where again, both directives, both from the county executive and from the legislature, could arguably be in the benefit of the county. Think of an example of a lawsuit against your county to which you lose in Supreme Court, okay? And now you've got money damages for whatever, $50,000. Your legislature might say, you know what, let's pay the $50,000 and move on. I don't want to pay any more litigation costs on this. It's in the best interest of our county to pay this and move on. Your county executive might say, you know what, I think, and it could be reasonable, both could be reasonable, I think we're going to win this on appeal. I want to go for an appeal. Now he's telling the county attorney, the executive, file this appeal. You and the legislature are saying, don't file the appeal, county attorney. Who does that county attorney follow now?
It's a real life example.
This is leading
It's
to
not
litigation.
And he would do what he feels in the best interest
Of the
of
county.
his
Yeah.
job.
But in that example, you could reasonably argue that both benefit the county. Both could be the right answer. So who does that county attorney follow if there's not clear direction of, in that case, when it's reasonable you could follow both?
I do,
We're trying to
I
follow-
do strongly believe that the attorney in a professional position, he or she has to make that
I
determination.
don't disagree with that.
I serve the county of Montgomery, period. And there's going to be instances where there's appropriation authority by the legislature to hire outside counsel, put it right in their charter, and that's how it works. Let the board bring in outside counsel to work through the issue. It's a suggestion. It's up to you folks on the board. It's up to you folks, how you want to do it.
What I didn't want to see, excuse me, what I didn't want to see is musical attorney.
Right.
That every 5 minutes you have somebody saying, I'm not going to put up with this,
Yeah, I got
I'm
it.
not being on leave. And then somebody comes in and says, well, I'm leaving. And then what do you have? If you serve coterminous, I think there's more of a cohesion between the chief executive and the attorney. That's my own opinion.
Yes, it could be that way. It could be that way. We don't know how this will play out. What we are speaking from is the experience of the other 18 counties that are out there with the charter. And I don't see it, there's nothing wrong with what you're saying at all. And that is the best of both worlds, isn't it? The person serves both bodies. That's how I
He
believe
serves
it.
the public.
Serves the public, but
Serves
both
the county.
Both
Yeah.
branches.
First.
Yeah.
The executive
We
and
serve the
legislature.
public.
People
Let's
first.
get it straight.
People first.
Okay, we're not gods.
People first.
Oh,
Yes.
excuse me.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. This has been one of my main concerns from the very beginning, and I love how you came to the answer, and that the county attorney represents the county. So I've met some wonderful attorneys. I've heard the jokes for a very long time. I love the law and I respect it. So I think that the county attorney, I've met some wonderful lawyers. So I think that the fact that they represent the county, you've given a lot of answers to a lot of questions I've had with the charter. So I think on the Education and Government Committee, I fully support the way that you have given some recommendations to this question. So thank you very much.
The conflict that you were speaking of, though, is a conflict for what would be in the best interest of the county. Whether you buy yourself out of the litigation or you continue the litigation. But when you go back, he says, whenever the interests of the county executive and the legislature are inconsistent, that's on a personal level. The whether you should negotiate out is not. It's something that we can discuss, and we wouldn't take it personally. But the reason that you're going to get involved in that conflict is one or two of the bodies is going to do something that is in conflict. It's going to require that attorney to take sides. It's really clear. And if we don't straighten out a lot of things, there are a lot of reasons why the county attorney is gonna have to take sides. When this was originally written, as written in the Putnam County, the attorney was appointed by the legislature. And so there was a discussion at the Charter Commission on whether the legislature should appoint or the executive should appoint. Because in either way, you have a conflict. If you go to the city of Amsterdam and the attorney is appointed by the mayor, the legislature will say, I don't have an attorney. That attorney does whatever the mayor wants. It could be reversed. So what is there is some compromise of trying to get the two, and it's a further continuation of the same conflict.
It is
What if the
inevitable, it's a difficult discussion.
What if it was written as Putnam County, that the legislature appointed that attorney? What would that county executive be doing? How would he act? How would he operate? What would that attorney be thinking? Who am I working for? Am I working for the legislature? I'm working for the executive.
I have, excuse me, President, maybe jump in. I just really have a very strong view of the county attorney. I may be unique and rare, but I believe that the county attorney serves the interests of the county, and that they have to work through the conflicts in the professional and ethical.
That's very noble.
Yeah, I know, but it does work. But Dominic, it does work. And Doug can attest to it. He knows these county attorneys from across the state.
If I veto some legislation, let's just say, and if I were to veto some legislation and the legislature's got to override, right? We're gonna have a conflict, you and I.
Right, but you're already causing a conflict that hasn't even existed. Maybe we can work through it.
Okay, but what side is the attorney gonna take?
Well, I would like to think.
I think in that scenario, and again, these are just suggestions, and ultimately, this will be up to the county attorney, but what we're seeing there is, and I know this, they do fall back to their ethical duties to the county itself. So they first have to ask themselves that question, what is in the best interest of the county? But assuming you spell out that, and that answer is, it could be either, and their duty then lies to what the county executives say. Let's say, in most counties, that's how we see that, the charter laid out. The legislature, because they hold the purse strings, as Steve pointed out before, they can appropriate, and they should have the power to hire their own attorney in those rare cases where there is a conflict that just can't be settled. And now you've got representation on both ends for if you can't have a meeting of the minds on that.
Okay, so we'll go back to the original point, is the administrative code. And the theory was that the charter tells you who has the authority, and the administrative code tells you how does it work. So can you imagine going into January 1 with these unknowns? If we didn't go through this exercise?
I agree with you, it would be quite complicated.
It would be quite complicated on January 1 for a whole new body of 9.
That's why I applaud you for doing this.
For a body of 9, not knowing, what the authority is.
I think enough said, unless you want to continue on this, I don't.
No,
think there's a
you know
real
what,
answer to
there
it,
was,
but-
the other counties that there was another county, and we talked about it, is that there were 3 attorneys. There was an attorney for the county,
I
there
never
was an
liked that
attorney for the
structure at
majority,
all.
there's an attorney for the minority.
Yeah.
All right?
That's
You know what they did? They covered all the bases.
Yeah.
Everybody's represented, and there's no conflict.
Call me old fashioned, but call me the old school county attorney then.
I don't think that's gonna happen here.
No, I don't think that's gonna happen.
Well,
I've been here several years ago as supervisor. I had 2 different county attorneys when I was here. Since I've been here, Doug has been here. And I think county attorney rises above that. I think the word noble was used there. I think they live in the county. I think their concern is for what's best for the county. And I think they serve the county. And I, like I say, in working with Doug for 3.5 years and 2 others, I've never seen that in the people's, in their personality. I didn't see it there. I think they've always, and I think it's something, there's a point in time when you have to trust people. You have to have some faith in people. And, I think it's one of these areas, I think that you put it in there, you serve the interests of the county. And if a conflict arises, it arises, I guess, and it'll have to be worked out with the legislature. But
You only have to serve, the thing was, you only had to serve one body.
So it's much easier right now.
It was the Board of Supervisors.
Size to pick right now.
Right.
When you've got two separate branches, that there's a problem. That's different
Yeah.
than the one body.
We also have the interest of the majority party in the legislature, and the minority's point of view in the legislature, and the county attorney's gonna follow the majority point of view. So it exists right now.
Well,
I think you should follow what's right.
That's democracy.
Regardless.
Just follow what's right.
You do what's right because it's right.
That's your ethics.
I would ask Doug what he thinks.
I much prefer in a contract
Quite a while.
that this is, that it be spelled out exactly, so that there is no, subject to interpretation. And wishful thinking that everybody is just going to get along and work in the best interest.
It's up to the board.
I've read this so many times, and I share the concerns that Steve is bringing up with regard to the situation as it's written here. It could be workable, but it's not necessarily workable, and that's really going to depend upon the personalities involved.
Let's say 2/3 of the board doesn't like the county attorney's personality. How he or she looks or walks in with his demeanor. How he or she goes. 2/3 vote. And that that body didn't appoint the individual.
It could be for any reason. It could be for party politics. It could be
Could be for party
It
politics.
could be for any reason at all. That's
As long
why
as it's
it
not
needs to
illegal
be.
or unconstitutional, out they go. Don't like the red tie they wear. Which you could do. Remove them or
But
red
that isn't the way we should be running government. That's absurd.
But that's what you've got.
That's what we have. That's what your government is today.
We know that. We're trying to go to a higher standard, I hope.
Okay, Michael, or Patrick, let's move along. Sure. Okay, conflicts, we did, Public Works Commissioner, powers and duties, human resources, Health Department, all good stuff. You guys put a lot of work into this, good stuff in there. This one, there's a typo in here, need to check on this. It's in that third line, that's just a typo in there.
you just want to take this out.
Yeah,
If you're cleaning up everything else.
yeah, need to check on this. Let me return to that. please.
Sure.
I just want to call this to your attention that when you become a charter county, that you then have the authority to eliminate this board. Right now, you don't have that authority. Just want to call it to your attention. Charter counties in the state law have the authority to remove this board and put in a commissioner of mental health. Or change the way that you do mental health, mental hygiene services in Montgomery County. Right now, the board makes all these decisions for you. Your board has no authority in this regard. I don't even know if you have any appointments over that board. But I call it to your attention because you're putting this into your charter here, and state law allows you to realign your department if you want. So I thought I'd just put that up. It's sort of an obscure authority that exists.
That, like economic development, you're correct.
Yep.
And they shouldn't have been part of the charter.
I want
per
to give
se.
this flexibility.
You know what, we have one part-time person who's the director of community services, and we've got a whole department created around him.
Thought it was unusual. Patrick, keep scrolling along. Other elected officials, your clerk, your DA, great stuff, your sheriff, a lot of good work in here, your board, probation, sealer, weights and measures, your coroner. Well, let me go back to the coroner here.
Sure.
We didn't make a note in there, and I don't know how, but a lot of counties are struggling with the coroners these days, about the elected coroners. Some are trying to just do medical examiners or a combination of things, or having these elected officials. Do you need that? Do you want that? Just as you're going through your charter, you should take another look at that to see how you feel about it. I didn't make a note on that, but what other counties are doing? Okay, real property.
Can we roll back to those boards
Sure.
for a second? Got it. We have in the county here, we have a water and sewer district on the western end of the county, which we appoint members to that. And Brian is a member of it this particular time, and this is, we received a suggestion here from the sanitary district one, appointment of board members. And of course, the new makeup of we're not gonna have supervisors in this town of that town. And they're suggesting that we make up the board, the mayor of the village of Fort Wayne, the mayor of the village of Valentine Bridge, the mayor of the village of Elliston, and the 3 county legislators in the district. Because the way the districts are made there, there's 3, that's what I'm wondering, if we have to put that, we have to include that in the charter, though, I assume.
I think it's a good change. The district's gonna be around.
Yeah, it's gonna be around a while, it'll be around along the charter, probably, so,
I think it's a good change.
yeah.
Good catch. All right, so as you go through here again, take another look at these section 12s there. You might want to look at all those departments. Scroll up a little bit. That's right. History, other county administrative boards, real property. You might want to just look through all these boards. Okay? What else? Where are we?
Oh,
General powers,
Re-
reapportionment. I think looks okay, right?
Yeah,
All right. General and transitional provisions.
here's the amendment.
Okay, so what is your current process? This is why it's important for media to be here. Media informs the public. It's a very important part of democracy, part of governing. People to understand. Are there people here? No. Do people come to your public hearings on local laws? Rarely. Do people come and participate in the budget process? Probably not. They're working, raising their families, and they have jobs. They put food on the table. So they trust the representative democracy, which is all of you here. So, with that said here, it's important to me to see this. All the stuff you just talked about, you wrestled with. How do you fix this? What's the process here? Well, your charter says it can be changed by a member of the legislature, the executive, or the legislative bodies of the towns or villages in the county. That's a strange provision, guys, ladies. It's just odd. It's peculiar, and I don't think is the right thing for the people, for the county as a whole. Remember that this is the county of Montgomery. It's not a town, or a district, or a city. It's the county. When you guys convene as the county, you act in the best interest of everybody in the borders here. So to do that then, you got to do the local law, 2/3 vote, that's good. Subject to a referendum on petition. That means that you have to have 2/3 vote of the legislature. They have to give the people of Montgomery an opportunity to collect signatures. As Patrick pointed out to me, a permissive referendum is the same as a referendum on petition. Okay? And that's what you've done here. And then you say, any other amendment that's effective transferring any function of the county to a town village has to automatically go to the people for a mandatory referendum. That's all good. So what I thought under discussion here is that the language is inconsistent with other county charters and state law. Minimally, your board, right now, your board blocks the city of Amsterdam from having an opportunity on a change. Why? Because it says towns or villages.
Right.
That's not fair to the
Right.
city to not be included in that. But what I think is that you default to what I think is the proper thing to say is that you should change this to say under action, this charter, under quotes, this charter may be amended in the manner provided in the municipal home rule law.
Period.
Then say, period. Then say, any proposed amendment, though, which transfers any function from the county to any municipality in here shall go to the people as a mandatory referendum. That is the clean way to do it, in my estimation, and Patrick's too. But your charter doesn't say that. The charter has this other language that I'm not so sure people who are responsible for doing a very complex, this is a very complex thing to do, understood the amendment. It may have been just a, oh, let's do it this way because it seemed to make sense. But when Patrick and I looked at this, and folks in the office, and we consulted other people, we think that at minimum, if you like to have the local governments change your charter, then you include the city of Amsterdam, or other cities. But to otherwise, now what does that mean in the municipal home rule law? That means a resolution. You change your charter. That's what we think should do it. If you choose to do it by local law, you could also do it by local law. In fact, I would recommend that. Have a local law, you have public hearing, elect the public input on the local law, but right now, you don't have that.
Right.
So let's keep moving along, we'll come back to that, which is probably the most important visit today. That's why I wanted the media to understand what we're all working on, so they understand if they feel so in the same way, that it's a little unusual in the structure. Last year, we saw execution of contracts is a little conflicting with earlier provisions here. With this language, you say all contracts into the county shall be executed in the manner provided by the charter, which says the county executive, by the way. Then you add this little language, or as directed by the legislature. So you have it both ways.
Right.
So our action was you may want to consider striking or as directed by the legislature. You do the appropriating, you give the money, but the county executive signs and executes the contracts. That's how it should work. That's the right suggestion. Anything else, Patrick, as we
I think
go
that-
through here?
I think that's it.
All right, so let's go back to the
The
amendments.
amendments. Yeah.
Piece here. So, for the board, the media, for the county attorney Landon, what do you do right now? We all believe, I can speak for everybody in this room, that the charter needs to be amended. That there's typos in it, right? There's things in there that need to be fixed that were either accidental or unintended consequence. Okay? So what do you do now? So do you should you amend it now? Should you let the new board come in and amend it? Okay? I have conflicting thoughts on it myself. I first believe that this board should straighten it up, clean it up, get it done. But how do you do it? Then the other side of me says, you should let the incoming board have a present from you all. Here's the language we fixed to clean up the charter. You fix it when you come in. Now, but there's a legal, we don't know the answers, but we want to turn it over to Doug. And we will help Doug. And we will consult with Doug. But it is a question. Does the county board of supervisors have the authority to change it on its own? Or does the county have to follow this process right now, which is what? Permissive referendum. You make your change, you have your meeting, you make your changes, you have to go give the people 45, 60 days.
45 days after you pass your local law to then get 10% of the votes from the last governor's election. You have to give them 45 days, and then if they get those 10% of the signatures, you need, the referendum needs to go on the election ballot, but it can't be within 60 days of the upcoming election. So you're really up against it right now, even if you went that process. But as Steve's
So we
explained, we
need
did
the county attorney on your behalf. He's got to look at this to see, and we'll help him, but he's got to see what does the board want to do. A, doesn't want the next board to do it, which part of me feels is the right thing to do. You need the media to inform the public, because if the media is critical of this board for the work that it's doing, that's not going to help, because the media will have said it's the future board's decision to make. But there are a lot of issues here to think about, to go through, to try to change what's been done. Now, here's another question, which I've been wrestling in my mind. Is the charter effective right now? Answer, no. Is there a county legislature elected? No. Is there a county executive elected? No. So in my mind, this board has the power to change what has been done. But the county attorney's going to look at that. You'll need a council opinion on how to advise the board what to do.
All right, I have a problem with this. It's a philosophical problem. I walk into the booth, like it or not, I vote. All right, I voted for this. It says it can be liberally construed, it can be amended by the people coming in after us. I think that's an appropriate way. I believe we should give them suggestions, and that's where it should end. Otherwise, is it possible that the board could also add 25 different things to this in departments where the people would say, I never voted for that? That becomes trust with the public. The public, this is what we voted on, mistakes, you have the next people clarify the mistakes, they can do that very quickly and get it done, and that's the proper way, because they will exist, we're going to be gone, some of us. et cetera. And it's a matter of when I go into the booth, I want to feel that that's what I voted for. I don't want to feel that, aha, guess what? 23 minutes later, somebody's going to start monkeying around with it. Now, I don't say that anybody's got bad intent, et cetera. I'm not saying that.
Right.
But can you add, you can answer my question, could you conceivably add 30 or 40 different departments to this also?
Yes.
All right, so that answers the question. That's a dangerous situation, I think you have with trust of the public.
But the municipal, and I agree with you.
Well, I don't care what that's,
I agree.
I think you got a public
I
trust.
agree with you. I agree with you that the people voted on this charter.
Right,
We have to respect the people first, just like you said.
That's right.
It's the people first,
people first.
people first. So
But we should offer suggestions.
you have a decision
That's the
today.
end of the ball.
Right. Suggestions to the incoming board. People first. When I was driving in here, that was my thought.
For now, it's
If
No.
if we don't, if we don't
When I was driving
change,
in here, I called Patrick and I
Yeah.
said that I want to advise the board to let the next legislature deal with this. But I don't know if that's the right, I don't know if that's the right.
no, because
thing
we're
to
setting
do.
up for failure.
I think with
When
this
you
budget
already
process,
know, when
that
you-
part, it's,
When you know that there are issues within this charter, you're setting them up for failure in the next government. And then when it falls apart, and there's article after article after article in the paper about how they're floundering, you know what, then there's the finger pointing. They voted to change the government, and this is what we got.
what does it preclude the new board from changing what we've suggested here?
Why, don't you think they should investigate it also?
They should.
Okay, so give them 9 months, 10 months, a year of floundering in the
What
water
would it
until
take?
they figure it out.
Then they're gonna have to say they don't trust what's been going on here. And I disagree with that. I think that they, whoever's gonna get elected, I talk to, that they would have enough ability to realize that they can read that quickly. I assume they're gonna know the charter when they commit. I'm making that assumption. So I assume they can say, wait a minute, I've been offered these suggestions. After November, you can sit down with them, have various, like we're doing here, conferences, and get it done. I don't see any problem with that.
But didn't we just agree that the charter is not workable the way that it stands?
all we are doing is it's the law right now. I think we have discovered that there are issues with the charter.
But do you want to let the next legislature
That
take 3, 4,
that is
5, 6
an
months?
appropriate question for your board of supervisors.
Right. When
You
we
should
know the
add.
smarter way to go about something, if we know the best way to do anything, why wouldn't we give the next board that ability to start out the best way possible? Some of these are typographical errors, some of these are a better way to construct it. And even if someone is in the opposite mindset of me, there was a concern concerning the county attorney, or there was a concern in a way a language was, because A and B may have differed, so we can put a couple of words different for A and eliminate B. This was a monumental task to reorganize government. So if we can start the next board, if we can come to a meeting of the minds and start this off better, that's our duty now. So this is still doing our duty in the best, and gathering all of the information to the best of our job now. I don't think that that's in any way infringing on the next board.
I just want to make one thing now, before I'm going to go to Jeff. I just want to make one thing clear. As I said at the beginning of the meeting, these gentlemen are not telling you what you have to do.
Right.
They're just finding what they saw in that charter from their experiences with other counties and their experienced attorneys. They're just telling you what they see in there. That could be a problem. They're not telling us you have to do this or you don't have to do this. I'll also remind you that the municipal home rule law says, and I've done the email back and forth with the Department of State here, and they state very clearly that this board of supervisors, after much research and confirming, we came to both of these actions, amending a county charter or adopting the administrative code, can be done either by the current board of supervisors or by the elected board. So you're not stepping out of your bounds here.
That'll help the county attorney in the analysis.
Yes, and number two, this board can amend the charter or repeal the charter, whatever they want to do. I mean,
You know what, if you connect it to what Michael is saying though, if your actions, you have to be accountable to the people. So in what you do, you have to tell the people what you're doing and why you're doing it. And you do that through communications, newsletters, and the media, and you have to sell it to the people because it is the democracy. If they don't like what you did, then guess what? They can vote you out. And that's how it works.
Okay, now, Jeff, I think wanted to talk.
So I do agree with Supervisor Wheeler that we owe it to the next legislative board to give them the best possible start. But I would remind everybody that we had a charter committee. There are many bright minds on it. There are at least 2 attorneys on the committee. If we're looking at amending it, and I agree with you, municipal home rule allows us to make corrections, but it could only go with the suggestions. And I would suggest that keep the politics out of it, reconvene the charter committee, give the recommendation that Steve has done to that committee, let them plow forward, come back here with some suggestions for housekeeping and minor changes, because 65% of our constituents voted overall to change this form of government. And this charter, even if there are amendments, is workable in its form it is. These are only some sections that might add, that need to be clarified, and some typos, but it is workable just the way it is. But I agree with Supervisor Wheeler. We should at least have a process. We should bring the same people in, reconvene that board, let them review it along with Doug, make some recommendations, and we should make those charter changes in a reasonable manner with respect to the taxpayers that voted for us. Thank you.
We're not talking about changing the charter. We're talking about clarifying how the charter gets administered. We already know that you're going to go in by March 15th, and the county executive cannot give you a budget message, and no budget message will ever come out on March 15th. Because the AUD doesn't come out until April 30th. You know that. So why would you pass that on to somebody else? You're not changing the form of government. You're trying to make it operate. You know there's a conflict on how the attorney operates. Why would you perpetuate that conflict? Because changes after January 1 will be a conflict. There'll be a struggle between the 2 branches. Why wouldn't you do it so you avoid them going through the struggle? It makes no sense to leave this to the next board. So, capital projects, to require that in this environment, and that the counties, all counties are in, and going forward, it's something that my advice to the state controller's office years ago was, don't get involved in capital projects. Because once you set them up legally, you're bound with them. And then you can't manage them. And Fulton County, who's been able to do capital projects, has been doing it because they have a source of money. And it was called the tobacco settlement money. But all of a sudden, they found a hole that they needed to plug with their tobacco settlement money. You know what their capital projects are? A $15,000 police car, $30,000 police car. That's the capital project in the city of Amsterdam. $30,000 police car. We buy them out of budget appropriations. That was never a capital project to us. So there should be a certain discussion on capital projects from somebody who's dealt with budgets for
I just
long
want to
enough.
clarify. We sat in this room, I think everybody was here, I don't remember, and there was the opportunity to amend that charter. And what happened? I think there was a caucus call, or whatever else. So if everybody was so concerned, why didn't they read all of this like I did? And why didn't they look at it and say, gee, I want to discuss this, or I want to do something? Why? What was really the reason for it? The people went in and voted for that, And I admit, this should be changed, but it should be changed by the new people that are coming in when this takes effect, which is next year. Otherwise, how can anybody have any faith ever going into a booth again and voting for everything? Because some law says, and I think you just said it, you could repeal it. Did you just say that? So you're saying in a sense you can throw out what the people wanted to do. I'm not saying that's going to happen. That's dangerous. And I will not support it. It'd be 14-1, but I will not vote to do that. Yes, thank you.
John?
Okay. The reason that you had a caucus on the charter vote was that the majority of the supervisors in this room, which was the caucus, felt that the Charter Commission presented the document, and the majority of them thought that the document as presented by the Charter Commission should be what went to the people. And that's really what you got. I believe there was one amendment, if I recall.
Yes, so I put an amendment in about the treasurer.
And so that's what you got. What we got, or the people got, was basically a verbatim of Putnam County's charter. So yes, there are some issues, such as 1501, that would omit the city.
So you change it
Exactly.
next time.
I think that you really need to do your due diligence and present it the first of the year to the incoming legislature to give them a workable document on day one, instead of them having to come in on day one and try to make changes to this document and learn the new process that they're going to have to go through. Basically, you're going to have a new government. If you can give them a leg up, as it were, by making some reasonable changes to this, and I really think that most of these have been quite reasonable. I don't
work.
I think that you're really helping the incoming legislature and the executive. You're at least putting 6 months ahead of schedule by doing this.
So why don't you present a white paper to the new people that come in and suggest that they change it when they get there? Is the world going to end?
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to end. Okay,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do support this because I think that helping the new group and being so transparent that they can see where these in very, the red, the white, the black, you can see the differences, that there's nothing nefarious about what we're doing. There's no adding of different things for positions, that we're just trying to clean it up because some things weren't from Putnam County to Montgomery County. So I absolutely have no problem talking to anyone about the changes that we would do. So there is as much information, because with knowledge, they'll be able to support this. I know that Doug wanted to say something, so thank you. If you, or maybe you were just pen.
Well, I'll just make a couple of comments. Obviously, it's not my decision which way you decide to go.
Aren't you
But-
glad for that?
What?
Aren't you glad for that?
Yes. I think the first thing, the Board of Supervisors should decide whether or not it chooses to attempt to make changes. And they really are, Dominic, I have to say, some of them really are changes, not just corrections. Some of them actually change. If you unplug the term treasurer and put in the term county executive, you've made a change. But that aside, the Board of Supervisors should decide if it is going to undertake the task of making some changes in the 5 minutes, almost to 5 months, almost to the day that it has left to do so. And if so, make the changes or decide to leave it for the new board. With all due respect, I honestly don't think the idea of coming up with some proposed changes and then handing it to a new board is going to be all that productive. The new board, I don't think, is going to just hook, line, and sinker take the recommendations that were made to it by a board that it's replacing, that the public decided it didn't want anymore, and go forward with it. They may tear it up and throw it in the trash, and you've wasted your time for 5 months. It's got to be one way or the other. I do, from what I have looked at, and I have not read exactly what Larry was referring to, but I have looked at that topic, and I do anticipate that this board would have the authority to make these changes if it decides to do so. Make the determination on either doing it or not doing it. Jeff, with all due respect, the more people you involve in it with a 5-month window left, the more chaotic it's going to be, especially when that involves your budget season, your final budget season as a Board of Supervisors. Let's not forget, and I mean this as a slight to no one, because everyone who worked on it worked hard on it, but this was put together in a very tight vacuum of time in early 2012, and as it turns out, there are some at least arguable omissions and errors and inconsistencies that exist in it. Don't make the same mistake again by attempting to rush through trying to make corrective changes and not doing a complete job of that as well.
To Doug's point, and Steve, when we talk about the budget process that's in the current charter, and this is not a reflection upon anybody who worked on the charter. It's more in line with what Doug was talking about, was the time period that it was compressed in. What was given to the Charter Commission was a county executive and an appointed controller, who was appointed by the county executive.
Correct.
So the budget process, when it talked about the controller, who was
The person who worked for the.
worked for the county
Not here.
executive.
Right.
All right, so the thing was, when it was decided that they were not going to have an appointed controller and they were going to retain the elected treasurer, what they did was, they took the controller out, put the treasurer in.
Yep.
Now, is there a material change? There isn't a material change, really, because that controller would have been the appointee of the county executive, and so it flowed together. The information came from the county, from the controller who worked.
That's all gone.
It's all gone. But what they didn't do is, you could have a bunch of people with all good intention. There's nothing legally wrong with that person saying treasurer. It's operational that the problem is. And operational wasn't in the Charter Commission. None of them,
Nor
one
we had
person,
expertise, right?
one person on the Charter Commission was a supervisor who may or may not have known how the budget process works. Agreed? You know what I mean? So the thing was, they were asking questions of us when we were there. So, you know, Larry and I attended most of the meetings. There was a question about, what is the relationship between the Director of Real Property and the Treasurer's Office, because they wanted to do away with the Director of Real Property. Some of them who wanted to consolidate. One of the attorneys said, we have a supervisor right down here, let's ask him, what's the relationship between the Treasurer's Office and Real Property? I said, none. One establishes the tax rate, the other one collects the taxes. And the one supervisor that was there said, oh no, you're wrong. So how much advice did they really get on the operational side of it? None. So some of these changes have to be made, or you'll be in a budget process that is flawed right from the start. And I think the public is owed a charter that, at least to the best of our knowledge, meets their needs. I'm not going to give it off to somebody else.
Yes, Steve?
I just want to make it perfectly clear to all of you that are here in this room and those that are not with us here tonight, and to me, represent us, that the work that you all did was monumental. That the complexity of what you voted on was incredible. I have 50, 60 hours of time into that document, same as Patrick. And reasonable people can disagree on many facets of this chart. But my point is, with that amount of time that I put into this charter, that Patrick looked at this charter, that our staff looked into this charter, it's incredibly complex. The fact that you were able to put something together and move it through an expedited process is a tribute to all of you and the hard work that went into it, regardless of the vote and how you voted. Whether you voted yes or no, you acted in what you felt was the best interest of the people of Montgomery County. And it is a rocky transition process. So I didn't want to leave that impression with you or the media that what was done in haste or what was done in error. By no means. What was done to the best of your ability and your county attorney and everybody, those attorneys in that commission. And I appreciate that, John, that Mr. Chairman, that this board allowed that vote to go to the people of Montgomery and let them decide. And if you said that was the caucus purpose, then that was the caucus purpose. They said, we'll approve it for the people and let the people decide. But don't think for a minute that it was fault of your own or this board by any means. None whatsoever. It is a complicated process to transition a government. And I wanted to make it perfectly clear. There is no blame to cast here. This is a complicated transitional process of moving from a board, a committee structure, to separate branches of government. And it is a tough thing to do. And I just wanted to make that perfectly clear. As you're all going through this, and those folks that aren't here tonight, when you go, everybody gets in here, and more people are involved, there's some explaining to do. I do like the suggestion of the Charter Review Commission, though, being involved in some capacity, consultative. That was the entity that did do it. It was independent. They may support everything that was discussed here today. They may not know. There was no operational experience in that regard in what you're changing. But you do owe it to the people. And any action that you do, you tell the people, this is why you're doing it. If you defer it to the next board, explain to the people. If you wait, you explain it to the people why the wait occurred. But either way, the people need to be informed of your decision. Thank you.
I think maybe Jeff, just let me give it one second. The thing was, in no time did I think about making a change without it going public and for a vote. I'm not talking about doing it in the Board of Supervisors chamber. You know what I mean? But if we've got a timetable that we can't meet, okay, then that's a timetable that will extend it out to the next group. You know? But if we have the time,
It's gonna be really tight. I don't, it's gonna be,
then it may be a moot point that it goes to the next group anyways.
No, you're beyond it. For the general election, you're beyond it now.
you might be, yeah. 'Cause it's 45 days plus 60.
Right.
After
You've got
the
95.
All right.
Okay, so then it's a moot point. We won't argue about it anymore.
Yeah.
Well, that's provided, you know, agree on this rule and decide this has to go to referendum. I don't believe it has to go to referendum. All I'm saying is that I'm glad you recognize that there are hundreds of hours that the commission put in. And they understand the charter, I think, fairly well. And
I was at every meeting.
and we have
Except for one.
also probably more time now than they did
They didn't understand.
when they convened, because we really don't have to make these changes until October, November, or December by our vote. So having more people involved in the process, I think it sheds more light on it, more clarity, more public trust. And you're right, they may agree with some of those changes, none of those changes, they may come back to the board with a recommendation a month and a half from now and say, you know, let's wait until the next board comes in to make those changes. They'll say, yes, there's some operational changes there that don't change the intent of the charter, that don't change what we heard in public meetings, and make some recommendations to adopt a few of them to give that legislator a head start. And that in no means recommends repealing or major changes or, you know, payroll changes or adding positions or departments. I mean, I'm not gonna support that, but some of these are type of draft errors. Some of them are just operational errors that could be corrected now. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Well, I would say if we follow proper procedure, this committee meets again on the second Tuesday in August, correct, Robin? You have to make a decision then if you want to send it on to the board to reconvene the commission. I believe that's the proper procedure we would use. And decide, the full board has to decide they want to reconvene the commission, have them look at these changes we've been talking about here today, and make a recommendation to us, and one second, they have to be voted on, obviously, at our regular board meeting, so they don't have to want to do that, but getting got to move it on, obviously, to the full board. And then, once we've done that, the commission would reconvene, their convenience, I guess, as soon as they could, and hopefully get those changes back. It can be done, I believe we discussed this before, Steve, it can be done by resolution. Did we decide that?
Well, I have to consult with your county attorney, and he needs to review the material that you have. But the municipal home rule law does allow the change by resolution, yes.
But the resolution, that if you're not talking about local law, resolution is not subject to a permissive referendum, am I correct, Doug?
That's true, that's true. I think the concern that Steve is expressing, though, is that you're amending something that's not technically in effect.
It's not in effect. I don't think this has ever happened.
Attempting to amend something that's not technically in effect.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, if that's the case, then you may have to wait till January 1st.
We don't know.
Yeah.
I guess you need the direction of the board and the direction of the Charter Review
Well,
Commission.
that's what I'm back to, going back to our next regular committee meeting here. We have to decide if we want to send this, we want to go that route, and reconvene the commission and have them make these.
I think that's a reasonable thing to do.
I tend to agree with Doug a little bit about getting a whole bunch of people involved again and that sort of thing, because my theory's always been the more cooks in the kitchen, the more you spoil the broth, but then again, I think it has to be, and then on the other side, the point, it's got to be totally transparent and totally out there to the public, and like I said, I'm very happy to, be here today.
They are the same people, they're not different.
Yes, I realize that.
They're already involved.
They were already involved, but I'm just saying, there's quite a few hoops you gotta jump through there to accomplish that. If it could be done just by resolution, without, that sort of thing, then you could go on to December and pass a resolution in December or November, I mean, that's not a problem, but it has to be done with a permissive referendum type thing, and it really can't take effect until the
They
board.
can't do it.
I think that's the question that we're leaving with you here today. That is the question. Can it be done by resolution, or does it need to be done resolution or local law and permissive referendum?
Now, looking at Doug, is that something we'd have to check that with state, I assume, like the Department of State, go through that?
Yes, and obviously, Steve have more experience with that sort of thing than I do. I don't know if they've honed in on it exactly on that point yet, but I certainly work with them, as they've indicated they'd
Yeah.
be willing to do.
And the Department of State?
Yeah, right.
That's what I was just going to suggest, could you three gentlemen work together on this and try to get us
We'd be happy to.
an answer, if it can be done by resolution. In the meantime, we will, our regular meeting of this committee, like I say, the second Tuesday of August, we'll put that on the agenda and see if we want to pass this on and reconvene the commission. If it can be, like I say, if it can be done by resolution, that's much simpler, obviously. I think we all agree with that. But,
Larry, most people, when we threw this up last year, there were people that were for the charter change, there were those that were against it, and there was a whole bunch in the middle that said that at least let it go to the people to make a decision. Now I hear some of the same voices saying that they won't let it go to the people to make a decision. I have no fear in letting these changes go to the people for them to make a decision. Because what they'll find, it's in their best interest. It serves their purpose, and it serves the new government's purpose. So I don't have a problem with that.
Well, that would be back to the,
And we don't have the votes in order to do this, because there are those that'll say no. And I'm not talking about those that are here. Some of those that aren't here will say, no, I'm not voting to change anything. They will vote for it, that's what they got. And so I can do a head count, and there aren't enough votes to move this thing.
so we're not talking anything here that requires mandatory referendum. There's nothing mandatory, that's only required when you change.
Correct.
If you're going to-
It's a permissive referendum.
Do away with a
Should never say
government,
choose.
that type of
No, but we
thing.
gotta get enough votes to get it out of this
Exactly, we
body.
gotta get enough, that's right. So I think Barbara had something.
I just wanted to say the Charter Commission, they did their job and their job was over with. I think that going forward, while I definitely supported the changing and starting the new form of government in the best way possible, I think that the Charter Commission was disbanded. So to try to reconvene that and add more cooks to the kitchen, being a complete foodie, I wouldn't support that. Supervisors trying to put our minds together and trying to work together, I completely support. And I thank you two gentlemen so much, and I'm so grateful for all of the work and effort you put into this. And I'm so grateful for the Charter Commission for all of the work they did. I think they did a monumental task, and I'm so grateful for them. But I look forward to getting a printout of this and going over it extensively. So thank you so much.
So can we have you three gentlemen work together and, get that information for us, and that if we can get it by that, almost have to have it by our second Tuesday in August, if we can find it.
You should be able to have a recommendation.
But I'm-
Doug will be advising me more than Doug.
Okay. That sounds to me like,
And we'll leave you the junk drive, which has all of these changes,
Yeah.
and you can distribute it to the committee. You want me to make a copy, or?
It's downloaded on this computer right here.
You have that, right.
Mhm.
So you have that.
No, let's get it, this as well.
I can't, this is a data processing would have to send it to you.
And then-
And again, thank you for having us here.
well, thank you, it's the other way around, Steve. I really appreciate
I wish we had 3 more months of this.
all your time and effort.
Huh? You're talking about 50 hours?
I hope we.
Yeah, it's been unbelievable. You have to read the line, then you gotta go to the Constitution, then you gotta go back.
That's
to the law,
awesome.
And then you gotta go back and see, well, what was put in the thinking? And it's a complicated web. But I do, last thing to say is, I do agree with your comments that we're talking about the operational side of the charter. That's what you're talking about now. The Charter Review Commission did do its work. This is the operational side, of it,
Right.
which is more in the realm of the legislature and the Board of Supervisors.
I may have mistakenly thought that, we would accomplish it in an administrative code, because I know that I know that these inconsistencies are there.
I thought so too.
So I thought that was the direction. But it appears that amending it is the direction.
Yeah, amending the charter, I think Steve and I discussed that several times before, amending the charter seems to be the best way to go.
I mean, because I know where the authority is.
The question is, how can we do that
That's right.
properly? That's the question. And I think bottom line is, we're all here trying to make this work as best as possible, and we're all working for the county, that's our job here. Whether we're gonna be here next year or not, many of us are, and aren't, and some of us are, but I think that's the bottom line, and like I say, once again, I appreciate all the effort that Steve and Pat put into this. And they've done a lot of work.
It's our pleasure to help. Again, it's a monumental undertaking.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be bumpy. I think anybody that doesn't think it's going to be bumpy the first few months of next year. It's going to take a while to get everything, even if we make some changes here and help them along, but there's still going to be bumps in the road, I think. Anybody got anything else to say here? And we'll be scheduled for the, we're not too late to get scheduled, are we, Robin, for?
No,
Okay.
Friday's the deadline, you made
That's
it.
right. Robin has announced she's going to delay her return here for another 6
Ah.
months, so she can make sure the charter gets out.
Right.
I haven't heard that.
No,
Just
That's a
kidding.
rumor.
Pigs fly.
Pigs fly.
Motion adjourned.
We got one.
I'll
I
second.
made the motion.
I'll second.
Where's the pigs?
X.